Okay, so in this video, I'm going to make it so that whenever a card lands inside of a check part of your Kanban, a trigger sends a bot to your channel. And then when this bot comes in, it sends a message to the client to say, please confirm the status of the thing that they need to check, and with a link to the individual place. And then when a button is clicked, it triggers off a workflow that moves it into another card to make amendments. So all of this is done using Slack bots, which are a little bit different to the normal, the Slack actions that you would make whenever you would add Slack here and then, like create a message or something like that, which pops up with this dialog box where you can add Integromat based Slack bots. It's a little bit more advanced and it relies on api.slacks.com, which is exactly where we're going to start, because this powers this entire workflow. So I'm going to build it from scratch, and I'm going to basically build the functionality in its most basic form. It could be a little bit of a choppy video because this is definitely not something that is very, very easy if you've not used Slack before, but we'll get into it anyways. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go all the way back, and I'm going to go to Slack API. So api.slack.com/apps will take you to whatever apps you have. This is like the homepage for your apps. So here I'm going to create a new app from scratch, and I'm going to call it landing page test copy tester or copy approval. And we're going to pick the workspace to create it in, and then we're going to click create app. And then from here, it takes us to the homepage for apps. Now, this app has nothing to it right now. There's absolutely nothing that you can do with this app right now. It's just a placeholder somewhere in the Slack API somewhere, just waiting to have functionality added to it. And there's a few bits of functionality that needs to be added in different orders. So the first thing that we would need to do is add features. And the features that we're going to need are going to be the permissions, interactive components, incoming webhooks. These three, and I believe this one pops up when you install the app or something like that as well. So like we'll get into that as well. But the whole point of this is that this is going to be able to this is going to allow us to post a message from Make into Slack. This is going to allow us to take the click of the buttons, and send information off back to Make to make different things happen. And if you have had a look at my video on how to basically make this type of, from scratch operating system, then you know that there's a lot of stuff that was made in here that wasn't touched, which we're now going to start using. We're going to start showing how that functionality comes into play. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to add some permissions. And that's going to take us to OAuth and permissions down here. For now, ignore these top three and just go down to scopes. And the scopes that we need are a few things which we're going to have to actually pull up a list of, because it's kind of long trying to get all of these out. So channels, manage, it was actually channels read as well. So we're going to add channels manage, channels read, groups read, groups write, channels manage, we've already got that one. Channels join, chat write public, and commands. And you can see that from here, all we're doing is just giving it actions that it's allowed to take. So it can now manage public channels, it can view basic information, it can join public channels, it can send messages as the actual bot itself, and it can send messages to channels it's not a part of, i.e. the public channels, and the commands one as well to add shortcuts and / commands. So those are the scopes that we need. We now need to go back to the basic information settings for this app, and we're going to install the app to the workplace, and it's going to pop up with the dialog box which happens every time you want to give permissions to stuff. Just click allow. So it's just it's just requesting permission from the scopes that we've just allowed. And now it is inside of our Slack. So if I go in and I tag landing page copy approval and click enter, I can now invite it to the channel. So now I've invited landing page copy approval to the channel. Now that basically allows us to start sending messages as landing page copy approval to this channel. This is a private channel, so it's already got access to public channels. This is now one of the private channels that we've now allowed access to. So the next part here is we're not going to manage distribution simply because we're not making this a public app. This is an internal tool. We're now going to go into interactivity and shortcuts. So interactivity is how we get these buttons to start doing stuff. So if we turn it on, we now need to add a request URL. So let's go back into Make. This is going to be our endpoint in Make, which is simply a webhook. So we're going to create a custom webhook. We're going to call it landing page approval test. Click save, copy the address to the clipboard, and then go back to the Slack API, add request URL here, and then save the changes. So now we have a URL. Basically, we have the permissions to send messages into chats. And then if those messages have buttons, we can now send activity of those button pushes over to this automation, because this is the endpoint, i.e. this is the webhook that is associated. So now we need to build a message. So let's just type in Slack block kit builder. It's going to take us to this page. And if we go down here, block basics, it just shows you a bunch of stuff about the building blocks and interactivity. We want to build and prototype this. So let's go here and click on block kit builder. And what it's going to do, because I'm already logged into Slack, it's, added the workspace name, and it's now giving us this. This is where things get a little bit sticky. So I'm just going to open JSON lint just off to the side, because there's a few things that you need to know just to make the blocks work, for your own particular need. These blocks here are just examples. So everything that's here on the left is presented in code on the right. And this is going to be really, really annoying to look at. So I'm just going to clear it, and we're going to start from scratch. And we're going to start off with a couple of blocks, which are just small sections to the actual message. And the first one is going to be Markdown, because Markdown allows us to use bold, it allows us to use emojis, it allows us to cross things out, and allows us to add hyperlinks. And if you go into, I think Zapier has probably the best, it probably has the best guide on formatting Slack messages. So if you want to know how this all works, bold, italic, strike through, lists, bullets, links, this is how you would create links, hyperlinks. And all of these activities, all of these ideas that Slack basically allows you to, play around with, we do inside of Markdown blocks. So let's just copy the one that we had. So this says landing page design ready for review. So we'll create a link. We'll just make it airtable.com, landing page design, close it, ready for review. I don't know why it's just done that. Ready for review. And then we'll put some asterisks in it just to make it bold. Then we'll add another Markdown block, and this Markdown block is now going to say page name, and we'll just call it test, and we'll make this bold. And then we want another Markdown which basically says, please confirm the status of this page below. Please confirm the status of this page below. And now we need some buttons. And the buttons are all under actions. So we're going to add one button here and then another button here. The first button is going to be called approve, and the second button is going to be called deny. Now the reason, so just to kind of like, you know, like as a breakdown, this is all in JSON. So it's built on a bunch of key value pairs. So key value, key value, key value. And you can see that where these square brackets are, these are objects, and the objects are everything. So the objects are the value, and the key for this particular object is the text. So the text of which the type is markdown has this text in it. The text of which is markdown has this text in it. The same information or the same idea applies to the buttons as well. So elements is the key. The value is this array which has a couple of objects in it, but we want to basically change the one that we can see, and you can just use the you can use the UI to find out what's what. So the text for this one, which is not going to be click me, it's going to be called approve, and the text for this one is going to be called deny. And that gives us an approve and a deny button. Now right now this doesn't do anything, but once we send it as a message, it will start to do things. But we still need to do a couple of other things. Now the first thing that we need to do is we actually need to add our own code to this to determine which channel we actually want to send this to. So we're going to make our own key value pair, which is going to be called channel. And then we'll take the channel name of what we've just added it to right here and paste that in its own value, and then press comma. And it's telling us there is an error, which is why we need to put this inside of JSON-lin. In fact, we might actually do this inside of make instead of here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to place it here because to my understanding it's still valid JSON. Yep, so it's still there, but the block kit builder won't allow us to have it, which is fine. We just want to play around with the approve and the deny so that we know exactly what we need to use. So there's two other things that come with each of these buttons. There is a value and then there is an action ID. These are the only things that we can use inside of this workflow to make things happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the value of click me 123 for deny. We're going to change it to, in fact, sorry, we're going to change the action ID to deny for the deny button, and we're going to change the action ID to approve for the approve one. Now the value is going to be the record ID of the cards that we're playing around with. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, we made this beforehand in the previous video. We can just copy the record ID from here. We're going to go back into the block kit builder and we're going to change the value for both of these to the record ID. So now I should be able to send this via make into the Slack channel. And once sent into the Slack channel, I can click on the button and then it should be received by my webhook. So what I'm going to do is call this one LP test. I'm just going to call it receiving webhooks LP test. I'm just then going to click OK and save that for now. And then let me put this inside of this here. Oh, it's already in there. Perfect. And then I'm going to copy this one because this is the one that I was using. Testing Slackbot LP test and save. And now we need to make this HTTP request. I'm going to make this from scratch. So let's go down here and click make a request. Move this button over here. Let's delete the module. There we go. And now we have a blank HTTP request. What we need to do is we need to send a message to the automations channel, which has this in it, which has, you know, these buttons in it. Once we've done that and we click on a button, we should have it so that this information gets picked up by the next automation. So let me come out of this one and then open up this one. So that can be there on the side, and we'll just leave that. And then we need a URL. So you can find the URL for posting Slack messages online in the API. So I think Slack API post message. So this is what we're going to stick inside of this right here. So we move that back here and then move this here. Slack.com/API/chat post message. This is a post method. As you can see here, post. We already have the chat write and chat write user, etc. We already have the chat write scopes, so we're good there. The content type is going to be JSON. Oh, goodbye. So we go here. We have the body type, raw, content type, JSON, and then the request content is going to be our, where's the blocks? Here it is. It's going to be our blocks. So we're going to copy the payload. And then, in fact, what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste the payload in here and then create the channel block that we've created beforehand. So channel : and then we want the channel ID from here. Paste that. And it should be valid. Yep. So now we can just copy this and put that straight inside of here. So we will replace this and put that in here, because now we have the blocks and we also have the channel that we want to post to as well. So this should now post inside of the channel, but we need an authorization header. So if we head over to the Slack API again if we head over to the bot and then we go over to OAuth and permissions, we should see OAuth tokens for your workspace. This is the bot user OAuth token. And what we're going to do is we're going to type inside of here, this is a key value pair for the permissions, this is basically just the authorization that needs to be used. So authorization goes in the name, and then we type in bearer, and then we add a space, and then we take this token, copy it, and then we paste it right here. So now we have the permissions that we need. We have the right type of action. We have the right type of action. We have the right type of method, and we have the information that needs to be sent. So this should send a message into the channel. So we have a 200 and we have an OK, and we can see landing page design ready for review. Page name test. Please confirm the status of this page below. Approve or deny. So the message has been sent into the channel. Now, if we go in to the receiving webhooks and we run it, if we press any of these buttons, it should send off a tick to say that we have received. And there we go. We have the payload. So this is all of the information that we have sent, including the approve action that we just clicked. Now, the reason why I'm straining myself is because it's not been parsed. So what we need to do is we need to add another module called JSON, parse JSON. And then we want to parse this string. And as we're doing this now, we're actually going to build a little bit more of this automation, because remember, we need to be able to, what we need to do is, since we went in and if I go back into the block builder, since we added a record ID from Airtable, we need to be able to piece that out and then get the record. And then when we get the record, we get everything attached to the record. And if you can remember, the record had the status, it had a created date, it had a last modified date, it had the name, and it had the company name of the client. And it also had all of the team members and a bunch of other information as well. All of that will be brought in to make, and then we can play around with all of those things. We can make updates, and all of these are record IDs in and of themselves. So we can update whatever we would need to, and we can take the record ID, which is also inside of the which is basically the row for the individual team member, take their Slack user ID, and we can notify them ourselves. So these are all of the things that can be done. This is where things can get, really, really spicy as far as this type of automation is concerned. So all of this is in here. We now need to basically take this record ID out from this gigantic string, which we couldn't really make sense of as we look at it right now. And this JSON string, Parse JSON, will allow us to do it. So whilst I know that that's there, I'm just going to click get a record. In fact, I'm actually not going to complete this step. I'm actually going to do this again. So I'm going to run it once. I don't care, run anyway. And then click on deny. And then it should, as you can see, split out everything. And now we can click into different things. We can click into the user, click into the container, click into the team, all of this good stuff. So this gigantic block of nonsense has now been split open into a bunch of key value pairs that we can play around with. And the one that we want to play around with is underneath actions. So the action ID is deny, and the value is the record ID. Just like that. So now we can go into Airtable, we can get a record inside of the base that we are playing around with, which was this one. Yep. And then we can click on pages, because this was the record ID of a page. And then if we just type in actions value is the record ID. And then we can simply click another update record in the same place. We can go into pages, and then we grab the record ID from this Airtable, get a record, because you can see here, developer name, copywriter name, designer name, account manager name, ops manager name, all of this stuff's already here. So then we go in, and then what we want to update is the status. And in this situation, we're just going to go and put amend copy. That's the only thing that we want to change. So now, if we have, in fact, and what I can do is change it so that once we've gotten a record, we can add a router, and we can set up the filter and say this is deny, where the actions action ID, which one do we want? We want actions text or action ID. So actions action ID is equal to deny. It will go up there. And if the actions action ID is equal to approve, if we go in here, actions action ID is equal to approve, then it will go down here into the next step. So it will update. In fact, let me just copy this over. Oh, I've just gotten rid of the, there we go. We'll change this over to approve. And then all we need to do is change the status to design page. So now, if we go back in here, it was in amend copy. I'm going to put it back in check copy. So let's just say, the copywriter's gone in and they've made the amendments that they need. And then we now want to check the copy. And let's say that we've got this inside of the Slack channel. The moment it drags into here, it sends the information off to Make. Make activates this automation, and this automation sends the message into here saying that it's ready for a review. This is the name of the page. Please confirm the status of the page. Once we get here, let's say it was denied. Okay, well, let's run, and then let's click deny. It's going to follow up here, and it's going to post it into amend copy. So then the copy needs to be amended and all of this good stuff. Let's say that, you know, after the amendments, it's now been approved. We can now go back in here, click run once, and then click approve. And then it's moved over to design page. So that is how you would make an interactive block, which is for an approval workflow. That's how you can do it. There are many other ways and many other things that you can do in order to make this, you know, applicable to your specific needs. So if you have a specific need in mind, just by some of the ideas that you would have seen from here, or you want this built exactly for yourself, then there should be a link somewhere that you can click, which will give you some more information. So yeah.